Hello everyone, in this video I'm going over the lab preparation for Microsoft 70-410 in installing and configuring Windows Server 2012 R2. For this video demonstration I'm using Hyper-V Manager, and what we need to do first, we need to create one internal virtual switch so our virtual machines can communicate together. First we need to open Virtual Switch Manager, and we want to create one internal switch, so make sure internal switch is selected, create virtual switch, and go ahead call it internal, and then click apply and OK. So what we did create one internal virtual switch. Next we need to create 3 virtual machines. First one we will go ahead and call it server A, second one server B, and a third one server C. And at the end we will install server 2012 R2 operating system on all of the virtual machines. Server A will be domain controller, and server B and C will be joined to the domain controller. For all the virtual machines, we will use class A IP address, the 10.10.0.1. Alright, let's go ahead and create 3 virtual machines. First, we need to right click, new virtual machine, click next. Let's go ahead and call it server A, and then click next. On this window we can choose the generation for this virtual machine, and as we can see here, first generation is backward compatible with the previous version of Hyper-V, and second generation we have some new features such as secure boot, SCSI boot, and Pixie boot, and it is not supported by the previous version of Hyper-V. And also we need to keep in mind, once we create the virtual machine we cannot change its generation. I'm going to use the second generation, next, and I'm going to go ahead and use 1536 for the amount of RAM, which basically 1536, 1536 gives us approximately 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. Next, and I'm going to go ahead and connect it to the internal switch we created previously, next, and using default location, default name, and next. I'm going to go ahead and use the ISO image to do the operating system installation, and this is Server 2012. Open, next, and finish. I'm going to do the same for Server B and Server C. So right click, new virtual machine, next. Let's call it Server B, next. Second generation, next. Amount of RAM 1536 megabyte, next. Connected to the internal switch, next. Default location, default size, next. Using the ISO image, and finish. Same for server C. Alright, so what we did create 3 virtual machines, as we can see here, server A, server B, and server C. We did also create internal virtual switch, and we did attach these virtual machines. Also we did attach server 2012 ISO image. Now we need to start the virtual machines and install the operating system. We can simply right click and start. And then to connect, simply right click connect, or just double click. And since this is brand new installation, yes, we want to press any key to boot from the installation disk. Again, in this case I'm using the ISO image, so the system is booting from the ISO image, and yes, press any key to boot from the installation disk. Since I started all 3 at the same time, we need to pay attention here at the title bar, server A, for server B, and for server C, as we can see here. So for server A, definitely we want to call it server A as we go through the installation. For server B, we want to call it server B, and server C, we want to call it server C. Alright, let's go ahead, go through the installation. Next, install. On B, next, install. And on C, next, install. Okay, so we want to install Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center with the GUI graphical user interface. So make sure that is selected. Next. I accept, next. This is brand new installation, so we need to click on custom installation. And then here, if we want to create multiple partitions, we can just simply click new. Or if we don't want to create any partition, we can just simply click next. And if we don't see a drive here, probably our hard drive is connected to a third-party device, let's say RAID controller. Therefore, we need to install additional device driver for it. So we need to click on load driver and then install the additional device driver. Then computer would be able to talk to the hard drive, recognize the hard drive, then we should be able to see the hard drive here. In my case, I'm using the virtualization, so I can see the VHD here already attached, and since I don't want to create any partition, I can just simply click next. Going to my Server-Gui, again making sure data center with GUI is selected, next. Accept, next. This is new installation, so it's custom, and next. And then going to Server-C. Server-C, I want to install server core, data center, and then as we go through the lab activities, we will install the graphical on server core. So let's go ahead and install server core, next. Accept end user license agreement, next. This is brand new installation, so custom, and we don't want to partition this VHD, so we can just simply click next. And as we can see, it is going through the process of installation, and during the installation, system will restart. Then we don't need to press any key to boot from the installation disk again. We just want to let the operating system continue the installation. I will fast forward the installation and I will be back. Alright, as we can see, the installation of Server 2012 R2 on the virtual machines has finished, and here it's asking us to type the password for built-in administrator account. I'm gonna go ahead and use password 01. As we can see here, password 01, but again, in the real world case scenario, we definitely want to use a strong password, let's say complex password, where we have uppercase, lowercase, and numbers, minimum of 8 characters, symbols. Okay, so Server-C, it was our server core, and this is server core installation. And let's go ahead, log into Server-A. And then I'm gonna go ahead also log into Server-B. Alright, as we can see, the operating system is fully up and running, and of course for server operating system, every time when we log in, Server Manager will load by default, which we can simply click Manage, and then Server Manager Properties. By selecting do not start server manager automatically at logon. Okay, and close. On Server-B, same, we can click manage, server manager properties, and do not start server manager automatically at logon. Okay, let's go ahead and close server manager window. Let's say if we need to open server manager, we can just simply click on this icon here, the computer and the briefcase icon on taskbar, and then it opens server manager. Also, we can click start menu and then server manager, and it opens server manager window. Alright, right now we need to perform the post installation task, which basically going over after the operating system installation configuration, such as computer name, assigning IP addresses, and so on. We can do that by going to server manager, and then this is Server-A, so clicking local server. First, we want to change the computer name. Click change one more time. This is Server-A. Okay. And every time we change the computer name, we have to restart. Okay, restart now. Let's go to B. This is server B, as we can see here on the title bar. Let's go and click local server. On server manager, local server, and then computer name. Go ahead, click on the computer name. Click change one more time. And then here, computer name. Go ahead, call it server B. And we cannot have spaces in computer name. All together. Server B. Okay. Okay, and then close and restart now. Since server A is up and running, let's go ahead log into server A. Let's go ahead log into server B. Alright, going back to server A on opening server manager. Let's go to server B, open server manager. Alright, after server manager loads completely, then we need to click on local server. And then Ethernet IPv4, let's go and click on that one so we can assign static IP address. Basically static IP address when we are assigning IP address manually. So we need to right click on the Ethernet, properties, IP version 4, properties, use the following IP address. We can go to server B, local server, and assigning IP address. Right click Ethernet, properties, IP version 4 highlighted, and then click properties. Use the following IP address. And for server B, I'm using 10.10.0.2. For the DNS, I'm using 10.10.0.1 because our server A will be a DNS server as well. Alright, going back to server A, local server, let's scroll to the right. So let's go ahead, turn off Internet Explorer Enhanced Security Configuration. This is basically where anytime when we want to browse on the internet using Internet Explorer, and if the connection it's not secure connection, if we are using Hypertext Transfer Protocol HTTP rather than using HTTPS, we will receive warning. It's basically saying that your connection to the web server it's not secure. So we want to turn off that warning. Okay, and then when we refresh, we should be able to see it's turned off. So let's go and set the time, change the time zone. Based on your location, you need to set the time. Okay. Alright, we can go ahead and close server manager, and then we can open control panel, system and security, power options, and then change plan settings and make sure it's never. Save changes. Okay. Alright, let's go to server B. Local server is selected. We did already assign IPv4. Let's go and scroll to the right. Turn off Internet Explorer Enhanced Security Configuration. And if we refresh, we should be able to see it's off. So let's go ahead and set the time zone. Okay. And then close server manager. Opening control panel. System and security, power options, under balance click change plan settings, change it to never. Save changes and close. Alright, so again what we did here, we installed server 2012 R2 on server A, server B, and server C. Server C it was the core installation. A and B it's a GUI, graphical user interface installation. So if you go to server A, and then if you open PowerShell, and if you type hostname, we can see the computer name. To double check, it should be Server A. As we can see, it's Server A. And then ipconfig to see the IP addresses. 10.10.0.1. Let's go to Server B and confirm. Hostname, as we can see, Server B. ipconfig 10.10.0.2. It's for Server B. Next, we want to install Active Directory domain controller on Server A. Also, we want to install DNS roles as well. So we need to open Server Manager and then add roles and features. Next, role-based selected already. Next, our server is selected. Next, under Server Roles page, we need to select Active Directory Domain Services. And then click on Add Features. And also make sure to select DNS Server. And then Add Features. So again, Active Directory Domain Services and DNS Server is selected. Click Next. Click Next one more time. Click Next. Next. And Install. So we are installing Active Directory Domain Services and DNS Services role on Server A, as we can see here. After the installation of Active Directory Domain Services, we have to promote the server to be domain controller, which we should be able to see it here under the notification section. When the installation of Active Directory Domain Services finished, then we have to go to Server B and join Server B to the domain controller. Alright, as we can see, it says configuration required, installation succeeded on Server A. We can go ahead, click close. And here, as we can see, the yellow exclamation mark next to the flag. Let's go ahead, click. And then it says promote this server to a domain controller. We need to click on this link. And this window will pop up. We need to select add a new forest. Let's go and call it Editum. And then go ahead, click next. And here, as we can see, the domain functional level or forest functional level, basically this is just for compatibility. If we have, let's say, older server, let's say server 2008 or server 2003, we need to change this domain functional level or forest functional level so it can be compatible with the older server. Since we are using server 2012 R2, we can leave it as is. And then password for recovery purposes, in case if the Active Directory services it's not functioning properly when we want to boot to the restore mode, we need to provide this password. I'm using password 01. And let's go ahead, click next. And then here for DNS installation delegation, let's go ahead, click next. On additional option page, click next. On this window, basically is asking us where do we want to store the NTDS util or sysvol of data, which we can leave the default location and click next. But again, real world case scenario, we might need to change the location and store it in different directory. But let's go ahead, click next. Next. And then let's go ahead, click install. So as we can see, it is restarting right now. And while we install Active Directory Domain Services on Server A, what we can do, we can go to Server C and convert Server C from server core to GUI. We will use PowerShell to do this. So first, we need to type Powershell.exe and then enter. So right now we are in the PowerShell. As we can see the PS and the cmd to convert Windows Server 2012 R2 server core installation to the full GUI option is as follow. After typing this PowerShell command, go ahead, press enter. Alright, while we're installing GUI on Server C, we can go to Server A and log in using the domain admin. As we can see, Active Directory Domain Services installation completed, and we can double check by opening Server Manager. and then clicking on Tools, and as we can see, Active Directory domain controller is installed, and also DNS installed. We need to keep in mind, since we just installed the DNS role, we might need to change the DNS address back to the computer IP address, because it will change it to the 127 address. So let's go ahead, right click Ethernet, properties, IPv4 properties, and as we can see, it's changed it to the loopback address. Let's go ahead and change it back to 10.10.0.1, and then OK, close, and close. Close Network and Sharing Center window, and then close Server Manager window. Alright, since the installation of Active Directory domain service is finished, let's go ahead, go to Server-Gui and join the Server-Gui2 domain controller. First, we need to open Server Manager, and then click on Local Server, and then where it says Workgroup, click on Workgroup, click Change. Here, we need to change it to Domain and type the domain name. And then we get the authentication window. Basically, it did communicate to server A, and now we need to authenticate by providing administrator username and password. If we didn't get this credential and we got error messages, we might need to double check the communications, if they can ping, if the IP addresses are correct, and so on. We will see this welcome message, click OK, and we have to restart the virtual machine. OK, close, and restart now. So server B has been joined to the domain controller successfully. And if you go to server A virtual machine and open Active Directory users and computers by clicking Server Manager, Tools, Active Directory users and computers, expanding the domain controller, and when we click on computers, we should be able to see server B. Server B has been joined to this domain controller successfully. Alright, let's go ahead, close Active Directory, close Server Manager, and going to Server B, Control-Alt-Delete. We have to keep in mind, since this is on a virtual machine using Hyper-V Manager, if I press Control-Alt-Delete, applies to my physical machine. For virtualization, Hyper-V Manager, Control-Alt-Delete is basically Control-Alt-End key. So let's go ahead, press Control-Alt-End using the keyboard, or we can also click here as well. Okay, where it says server B /administrator, we need to keep in mind this administrator account is a local administrator account, because server B is the name of the computer, the local computer. So anytime when we log in using server B /administrator, we are basically logging as a local administrator account. If we want to log in as domain administrator account, we have to click on this arrow, switch user, and then other user, and then here we have to type editom /administrator. Basically, we have to specify that we want to log in using domain admin, not local administrator account. And you might say here already says editom, so just type the administrator and type the password. But check this out, as soon as we type administrator, it will change the sign in to the server B, because it's assuming that, hey, administrator, there are local admin, so you're probably saying local admin, right? So that's why we have to specify editom /administrator. To show you, I'm gonna just type administrator, and you see, as soon as I typed administrator, here says server B. That's why we have to specify the domain name by typing editom /administrator and then typing the password. So now it says editom /administrator. This is an example of domain admin account, and I'm using password 01 for this video demonstration. And as we can see, Server Manager loads by default, and you might say we disabled that feature. What's going on here? Yes, this is domain admin account. It's another user account. Basically, we are logging as domain admin, so we have to do the same use on this domain admin account as well by clicking on Manage, Server Manager Properties, and then say do not start Server Manager automatically at logon. Okay, and then close. Alright, right now if you open up PowerShell And if we type who am I, it will show who we logged in as. And we logged in as domain admin a.tom/administrator. If it says Server-B/administrator, that's a local administrator account. Since it says a.tom/administrator, we know we logged in as domain administrator. We have the privilege of the domain admin account basically. Alright, as we can see, converting from server core to GUI has been finished. Let's go ahead and log into Server-C. Alright, now we can go to local server to change computer name, assign static IP address, and set the time zone. So let's go ahead and click on computer name, and then click change. This is Server-C. And then OK. OK. Close. Restart later. Let's go ahead and set the IP addresses by right click on Ethernet, properties, and then making sure Internet Protocol version 4 is selected, and then properties, use the following IP address, and then OK, and then close network connections window. We can scroll to the right, turn off Internet Explorer Enhanced Security Configuration, and then set the time zone. We can go ahead, close Server Manager, and restart. Let's go ahead, log into Server-C by pressing Ctrl-Alt-End. Now we need to join it to the domain by opening Server Manager and then clicking on Local Server, and then clicking on Workgroup, click Change, and then Domain, make sure selected, type the domain name. Username administrator and password 01. OK. As we can see, computer has been joined to the domain. OK. We need to restart the virtual machine. OK. Close and restart now. Now if you go to our server A, which is domain controller, and if you open Server Manager and open Active Directory users and computers by clicking Tools, Active Directory users and computers, we should be able to see under computers container, we should be able to see Server-B and Server-C. Let's close Active Directory, close Server Manager, going back to Server-C. Let's go ahead, log back in. We can click here, and we don't want to use local administrator account, so we have to click this arrow to switch user, and then use other user, and then we have to specify the domain name /administrator. Alright, let's go ahead, disable this automatic startup of Server Manager at logon. Do not start Server Manager automatically at logon. OK, and then close. We want to change the power settings by clicking Start, Control Panel, System and Security, Power Options, and then change plan settings. Change it to Never, and then save changes. OK. Alright, so quick overview. On Hyper-V Manager, we created 3 virtual machines, Server A, Server-B, and Server-C. we installed Server 2012 R2, and Server A is a domain controller and also a DNS server. And then Server B has been joined to the domain controller. Also, Server C has been joined to the domain controller. The network discovery was turned off, so let's save changes. Okay. And then if you go to Server C and open Network and Sharing Center, change Advanced Sharing Settings and make sure Network Discovery is turned on. Basically makes your computer discoverable by another computers. So right now if you type ping the IP address, since I typed previously, I just pressed up arrow on my keyboard, enter. And as we can see, for echo request and for echo reply, 0% loss. And using the ping command to test the connectivity, going to Server B, and we can ping. Well, this was the lab preparation for Microsoft 70-410 in installing and configuring Windows Server 2012 R2. The lab preparation has been completed. If you have any question, please leave it in the comment section. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more tech videos like this, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.